Hi, I'm Dr. Sharon Saline, and welcome to our July Facebook Live, How to Improve Focus and Get Stuff Done with an ADHD Brain. If you can hear me, please add your name and where you're from so I can welcome you officially to our Facebook Live. It's great to be here. I know it's a hot day for some of us here in the United States. Um, we've been kind of out of practice or out of connection for a while, but I'm really psyched to be here and I'm psyched to see all of you. So please say hello. Hello, Meljo. Hello, Maggie from Malta. Excellent. Melita. Hello, Tootsie. Hello, Iman. Welcome. I'm so happy that you're all here. We're going to be talking today about such an important topic, which is focus. And that's something that so many people with ADHD or who are neurodiverse struggle with. Hi, Susan. Nice to see you. Let's see. Hi, Diane from the UK. Hi, Mary from Seattle. Hi, Linda from Delaware. Vicky from South Africa, welcome. Juliana from San Marcos, Texas. Debbie from Huntsville, Alabama. Oh, Tootsie, you're from the Bahamas. How lovely. Tina from Iowa. RK, nice to see you. Hi, Robin from Bremerton. And Monique from, didn't say. Hi, Tonya from West Virginia. Hi, Emily from Sweden. Awesome. Hi, Melanie. Hi, Christy from South Mississippi. Daniel from London. Joanne from Worcester. Hey, neighbor, I'm in Northampton. Welcome. Londa from Denver. Carolyn from New Zealand. Mo from Manchester. Elaine from England. Michael from Las Vegas. Christina from Wisconsin. Dodie from Scotland. Laura from Pennsylvania. Bob from Philly. That is my hometown. Born in Philly. Hi, Kat from Canada. Hi, April from Ithaca. Hello, Amanda from Hertfordshire in the UK. Hello, Helen from Henrico. Ilona, hi, nice to see you. Gregory from Pittsburgh. Lisa from California. Wendy from New Jersey, my state where I grew up. I'm a Jersey girl, just like you. Gemma from Sheffield. Deborah from Dallas. Tiffany from Knoxville, Sam from Australia, Fabiola, hi, from Texas, Jessica, Carla from Minnesota. Oh, there are so many of you. This is fantastic. I didn't know who would show up today. It's wonderful. Emma, and Oslam from the UK, and Lila, and Jessica, and Maggie from Arkansas, and Jennifer from Ottawa, and Amanda. We focus on everything. Monique, Texas. Hane from Denmark. Angela from South Carolina. Durham, North Carolina, and Philly. Hey, Lou, you got it all covered. Stephen from Glasgow. Becky from Devon. Josie from Colorado. Michael from Odin. Mary from Saudia. Lou Gent from hi Lou, just Durham, haha. Malta from Claire, Nada from Egypt. Good morning, Ronell from Australia. Kari from South Dakota. Heidi and VJ from New York City. Dot from Illinois. Alethea, how you doing from Alabama. Nicole, Australia. Haley from Kent. Natasha from South Wales. Oh my goodness, there are so many of you. I can't keep up with all of them. And I want to just say welcome everyone. Yes, you're kind of watching Romper Room as I greet everyone. So I'm going to stop greeting everybody, but I just want to say thank you. And Bob, it's your birthday today. So I'm celebrating this webinar and striving for a better life. So I'm going to sing you a song. Makes me think of the good old days. Happy birthday to you. Well, you sure grew out of your baby ways. Happy birthday to you. X number of birthdays, wish you many more. Health and wealth and friends by the score. So let's cut the cake and eat some more. Happy birthday to you. I hope you have a beautiful birthday, Bob. Okay, Let's get started. So, we're going to be talking about focus today. And I think that's such an important issue, not just for people who have ADHD or are neurodiverse, but for so many of us living in today's society because we have so many distractions. Um, and I think it's important that we really look at what is distracting us and what is getting in the way of our being able to focus as we would like to ideally. So let's talk for a minute or two about what is focus. So focus is a dynamic process of choosing what is critical to notice or do or recall. It's like a flashlight. It's your spotlight of attention. And just to continue with the romper room theme, if you can make a fist and put it on your forehead, you can do this. It's your spotlight of attention. And I know that's really corny, but sometimes if you think about wearing a headlamp and where you're looking and what you're doing, your light could be all over the place. We want to try to narrow it so that it's on what you're doing and not on what you're not doing. So focus is about how it's the spotlight of your attention, but it's also about how you direct your attention. So stress, worry, sadness, trauma, all negatively affect the ability for you to concentrate and persist with activities. Focus is affected by many things, including a loss of familiar routines, where and when you do things, and predictability, how and why you do things. So when there is some activity that interferes with a routine that you're used to doing, maybe you're traveling, maybe someone in your family is ill, things are disrupted, that will affect your focus. When there's a lack of predictability, like you're used to doing things in a particular order, and now that order is shifted, you'll struggle with focus. Human brains, especially those with ADHD, benefit from these habits of familiar routines and predictability. Now, people with ADHD often face challenges in several of these categories simultaneously. You all can benefit from some type of daily routines because these structures help you prepare for and adapt to what's coming. And this is also an oxymoron. This is often an oxymoron, excuse me, for people with ADHD, because many people with ADHD are like, oh, I hate structure. I don't like structure. I can't create structure, but I actually do better when I have some. And this is true for me too. I like to have a certain routine. Like I see my clients on a certain day, and then I have other days that I hope to set aside for writing, but then something happens and then I fill them up and then I don't get to do my writing. And so I'm not following the routine and I feel just uncomfortable. And then there are times where I don't want to have any routine at all. In the past 3 weeks, I've been taking some time and space to rejuvenate and refuel. And some of that has been hiking. And for me, that's the task of the day. I get up, I make some lunch, I go to the trail, and I hike. And then I come back and I put my feet in the freezing cold river and get some dinner and just chill out. So that was a very simplified routine, but it was a routine that felt very nourishing to me. So I'm curious, when you think about what kinds of routines work for you, what do you come up with? And can you put that into the chat? What routines do you have in your life that nourish you? Okay, that feel like you're getting done what you need to get. You're not just getting done something, but you also feel like it kind of keeps you on track. I have a quote in my book from a boy who said, I do things in a certain order. I brush my teeth, I put my do-rag on, and then I plug my phone in. And if I do it in a different order, it kind of messes up my night. So I'm curious for you, what routines serve you and how do they serve you? Laura says, getting into nature every single day. I love that. Anybody else have a routine? Paulina, you don't have one, so we'll work on that today. Denise, work out first thing in the morning. Oh, I'm with you on that. I like to work out first thing in the morning too, preferably outside. Amanda, connection with people. Melanie, I need and love structure. I get so overwhelmed, so I don't do anything. Lists and Habitica help me. You know, Habitica is actually a really great app if you're not familiar with it. So thank you for listing that. I appreciate that. Um, let's see. Sleep hygiene, that's a really important routine. Fabiola, daily meditation followed by yoga and then elliptical in the morning. Prep me up great for the day. Oh, Fabiola, I want to come live with you because that sounds great. Denise, I'm drowning all the time. I work around others' priorities. So I'm going to make a note about that, about how to set your own priorities, so we can come back to that. Because drowning all the time sounds really terrible and so frustrating. So nighttime to do for the next day, great. That can help organize. For some people, particularly those of us who run a little with anxiety, I encourage you to do a little brain dump before you go to bed of the things you want to remember for the next day, so you're not thinking about them and not going to sleep. It's like, okay, I have my list, I know where it is, I've emptied my brain, and now I can, transition into sleep and hopefully some, inspiring dreams. Cat, for me, it's as simple as making that first coffee and making it hot. Fantastic. Onisa, coffee at 8 p.m. with my husband starts the end of the day. Great. Part-time working as a cashier. Fantastic. Lindsay, when I wake up, I take my medication while managing my breakfast. If I forget or get in a hurry, it messes up my schedule, and I often forget my meds until late in the day. I just want you to know, Facebook is doing that thing where it takes away people's comments. So if I don't respond, please send again. Exercise, says Jess, then shower. That sounds great. Bob, almost none since I lost my job. I need to develop some. Well, Bob, this is your birthday, and so we're going to help you develop some routines. Well, I'm going to put that on my list to do too. Help Bob develop routines. So we'll be talking about that. Listing the task of the day and gym in the morning. Don't take methylphenidate. Okay, that works for you, Richard. Adeline, I'm searching for my ideal routine. I have established some: morning, get up, brush teeth, take meds, feed cats, then my days go wild. So you need a little more structure than that. This is being recorded, and you can get it on the replay. Eileen, I have no routine at the moment, and I'm suffering for it, struggling to start one. Okay, so this is a theme that's coming up. People are really struggling to create routines. Ironically, the people who most benefit from the routine and structure of the military are not qualified per their rules. That is interesting, Johnny. You know, I do have some people who have ADHD and served in the military, and it was very helpful for them in actually training them to set up those routines. Lisa, apparently I had routines I didn't realize before the pandemic. When working from home more, than I didn't follow the routines, and I've been struggling to figure out my new normal. Everybody, I think, is doing that. I think there's a way in which, now that we have the ability, because more things are online, that we can work at home, it does kind of mess with the structure that we had developed and probably come to love and depend on. Danielle, I don't have any conscious planned ones. I think it's when I reach out to text a family member. Renelle, once my day gets up and running, I'm awful at staying on top of hydration, and I notice a difference in my mood. Yes, hydration is very important, drinking water. Melanie, I'm a teacher, so summertime is hard for me. Yes, I would imagine it is, because you're so structured and then boom, you have nothing. So we're going to talk about that. Need structure in the morning to get organized. My wake-up routine, so something since childhood. I always prepared a pile of everything I need for the next day, no matter how late I go to sleep. I set alarms for meds and starting work. I work from home. That's helpful. Calling my parents as soon as I get to work before I go to sleep. Otherwise, I become anxious. All right. Lou, it can be difficult to extract your trauma experience from your ADHD emotional reactivity. So for those who feel like they are drowning, looking into how rejection sensitivity might be affecting you could be a supportive. It has really helped me. Thank you, Lou, for sharing that. I agree. There are a lot of similarities between the trauma response and ADHD, but there are differences. Maybe we'll do a Facebook Live on that in the fall. Nicole, get up early before everyone else and have some alone time. Jessica, I try my hardest to use these tools. However, I feel as if my anxiety eats away at my positive approach. The app, it was Habitica. I'll put it in the comments. Um, and while I'm adding something to the comments, I want to share with you a downloadable that you can get on my website. It's free, and it's about kind of motivating yourself, how to harness your grit and get stuff done. So that's there for you as well. Every morning I take your Adderall. That helps you. Why? What? That's a vacation and maybe some private tutors. My life is a real struggle right now. It's hard to build a routine and have it work and easy to mess it up. Right now, illness has thrown me off. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Kristen. No routine at home and easily distracted at work. I struggle with the weekend. No routine and just end up wasting time. You use your Done app to keep track of healthy habits. That's great. I have very little routine and barely any direction or motivation. I never know where to begin my day other than with a cup of coffee. All right, so I'm getting a sense of where people are. And Virginia says, I participate in a virtual boot camp early in the morning 3 times a week, and getting it done first thing helps my days, and the online community is supportive. So that's an interesting idea, like how can you create, a routine buddy or other people who you meet with at the same time 3 times a week so that you are exercising or you're walking together, even if you're just having a 3-way conversation, or you're meeting at the gym or something that helps you get up and out. Wendy, I'm struggling too. Hugs. Okay. I have no consistency. Stay-at-home mom, lost structure, purpose once my kids went off for college. I hear that. I have an article. Maybe Melanie, you could add this. It's on my website. I think but it's also through the Psychotherapy Network or on, relearning parenting, about how to parent once your kids leave the nest. It's hard because if your sort of whole routine was around your kids, and even if it wasn't, their absence is a significant loss, which will disrupt your routine. Okay. Keeping a diary and noting appointments on the wall calendar and keeping my son with his ADHD on to his routine also helps. I'm not sure if it's psychosomatic, but starting the day with my vitamins, which includes fish oil, which I heard is good for ADHD. It is. It can be. Helps me starting with the day productively. I habit stack on top of that with water intake, brushing teeth. And Lila says, I care for others too much and it creates anxiety. I don't know how to put myself first. Okay, I hear what you're saying, Nicole, about a trauma ADHD webinar. You got it. We'll put that up there. I'll talk to the powers that be. Let's see. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about how to create a routine and what gets in the way of it. So, we're talking about focus. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of interest in routines, but I want to say a few things about focus and then get to, what people have brought up, which is how do I create a routine for myself? And I work based on other people's priorities, and I can't figure out what my own are. So, one of the things that's helpful about routines is that routines fill in the gaps where your working memory may lapse. And the many disruptions of the pandemic have, pretty much upended whatever practices previously could have assisted you to get through each day and manage situations with a sense of confidence or competence. Also, any disruptions in your life, kids going to college, perhaps a family member is ill or has died, or you've had a change in your relationship status. Any of these things will shift your routines, and you'll start to feel unsettled and unbalanced and a little bit lost. Now, one of the things that we can do to improve focus is by noticing where it is. Most people notice when they're returning from the drift. So you've drifted off, and then you come back and you're like, oh, wow, you know what? I wasn't really completely focused here. I went to the Bahamas. And so what we want to do is to learn how to create a plan for catching up when you have drifted off. Like instead of judging yourself or putting yourself down or saying something negative to yourself, be matter of fact. Like, what am I going to do in this situation when I drift off? I'm in a meeting. I know sometimes I drift off. Do I have a buddy who I can sit next to who is taking some notes about that? Thank you so much, Melanie, for putting that up. Do I have a buddy who's taking some notes so I can look over? Or, do someone who I could elbow and they would write me a quick word or two about where we are? I think it's important that we lean into the people who understand us and are willing to help us. Okay. Okay. So we want to be as intentional about what we're not going to focus on as what we are going to do, which means that we have to understand what it is that distracts us. Okay. Okay, Danielle, thank you for telling me that. That's a little weird. Let me try this again. That should not be the case. Here, I'll just send a different one, which is how to get a motivation tip. Let's see if this works better. Tell me if this one works, and I'll check on the problem with the other one. Okay. All right. So what I was talking about was that when we are intentional about what we're not going to focus on, then that helps us with the focus on the things that matter. So there are ways that what we can do is to identify possible obstacles and distractions, things that set you off from what you're focused on, and then make it hard to come back. So we want to identify possible obstacles and distractions. What types of things distract you? Then we want to reduce various notifications. So turn off your phone, turn off the banners on your computer, and then use different browsers for fun and work. Because if you're trying to use the same browser for work, but you have a tab open of shopping at your favorite online store, you're going to Etsy or something like that, then you're not going to be able to focus. So put Etsy on a completely different browser like Safari, which will make it harder to get to. So let's go back with a new question. Thank you for all the comments about bullet journaling. It is a lifetime of buying expensive planners and all sorts of things to stop me messing up. It really did help me. Thank you for sharing that, Shirley. I appreciate that. Thank you, Wendy. It could be overwhelming. Yes, I can see that. Cassandra, welcome. Hi. I cannot recover well if my routine is disrupted. My grandma died last August, and a year later, I'm still struggling to get back into a consistent routine. I'm doing the best I can, but it's frustrating that my brain is struggling to do anything consistently. I've relied on body doubles more this year than ever, and finally ready to humble myself and accept the help my friends have been offering to help me take care of the clutter that's built up over the last year. Good for you, Cassandra, for asking for help and then receiving it. And I agree 100%, Amanda, that when you create a routine for kids with ADHD, you need to include them, to not just respect their autonomy, but to invite their collaboration. Okay, so I want to continue saying a little bit more about focus, and then we're going to go into routines. So Kristen says, as silly as it sounds, nothing sounds silly to me, by the way, when trying to focus sometimes I get confused on where or how to start. There are so many angles and so many things grabbing my attention. That doesn't sound silly at all. Routines and triggers for when to start. Instead of 1 p.m., my trigger for loading the dishwasher is after lunch. Okay, so you end up going in circles, Kristen. That's great. All right, so, that's helpful. So let's talk about the different types of focus and how we can improve our focus. Amy does add something that's really important, which is routines and focus have become increasingly difficult since menopause. And this is true for a number of reasons, because estrogen and progesterone modulate a couple of neurotransmitters in the brain. They work with them. One is ACH, that has to do with memory. One is dopamine, that has to do with pleasure and satisfaction and motivation. And the other is serotonin, which has to do with mood. And so what we're finding is that a lot of women who may have not necessarily shown the signs of ADHD before menopause, or had mild signs and somehow managed it with their intelligence or their competence, once they went or started the menopausal process, the difficulty of organizing and some of the symptoms, the latent symptoms of ADHD, reared their head and have complicated life significantly. Okay, so I want to say a few things about the different types of focus. So there are 4 types of focus. The first one is selecting, choosing what to focus on. And I saw that a couple people wrote that it's hard to know where to get started. So let's talk about that. How do you choose what to get started on? And this has to do with the ability to plan and prioritize, which is really something that many people with ADHD and neurodiversity struggle with. So what happens is that for many people, everything seems the same level of high importance. It's hard to differentiate between one thing and another. So ideally, what we'd want to do is to use the urgent and important matrix to be able to see what things are urgent. Those are time-related issues versus what's important, which is a value-related issue. So in order to enhance prioritization, part of what helps is to be able to zoom out to see the big picture. One of the things that happens for many people with ADHD is you get stuck in the forest or in the weeds and you can't zoom out to see the big picture. And when you add anxiety or depression into that mix, it's even harder to see, okay, what is the big picture? What are those mountain peaks that are coming through the clouds? That's the thing that's the important issue. It's the biggest, and it's calling for me. So one of the things that we want to do is to be able to look at what we're facing and see what the priorities are. So we want to identify things in terms of urgency, what's a time deadline that I'm facing, and importance. Okay, so what's something that that matters to me, that's a value that I have. When I do it, I'm in the flow, I'm in the second quadrant. So most of us spend a lot of time in quadrant 1, which is the quadrant of crises. Things are urgent and important, and we always feel like we're dealing with emergencies, and we can't ever get to the place of quadrant 2 where things are not urgent but they're important, and that's when we feel like we're in the flow, like we're getting stuff done. We remember to get a haircut, we remember to set up a dentist appointment, we turn our report in for work on time. Okay. So when you're struggling with what to prioritize, one of the things that helps is really to do a brain dump of some of the things that you're facing, and then to take that list and then to make a second list that's smaller of the things that have a time pressure. Just those. And let's do those. Those are the tasks of the day. And if that's still more than 3 or even I would say 3 or 4 items, then your list is too big and you have to make another list. So I would start with time, because the time pressure, the time element is what is so hard for many of us with ADHD, because we're not always so great at managing time. So we want to set up these lists so that we can learn to prioritize and differentiate between what's urgent and what's important. Okay, so let me see some of these comments here. I'm going to try to zoom up so I can see them. Okay, let's see. A couple people about everything being the same level of priority. Cat, I set out to prioritize the bigger and more urgent tasks, but as the week has gone, I focus on things that are valuable to me. Example, client-based work versus my own driven products. I wind up anxiously trying to finish what I should have prioritized, and it's very rough. So that's a really good point, Kat. And I think what you're talking about is that, you know, we end up prioritizing things maybe that matter to other people, but may not be something that actually is our heart's desire. And in those cases, what we want to do is make a chunk of time. You know, you could even say like heart's desire or my priority. Someone said that they're, you know, I'm always drowning. I'm always dealing with someone else's priorities. Well, that's because there's no time for your own priorities. And one of the things that happens is there's a sense of pressure, like I need to get all this done now. Right? This has to again do with that time management urgency factor. So if you can lay out your priorities in terms of time, that will help. The second thing that we want to do is we want to pick one challenge for our focus. Like, what is our main focus challenge? And work on that and create an ideal response for that. So could you put in the comments section, what is your main challenge? What your one main challenge with focus? And let's brainstorm a little bit about how we could respond to that in an alternative way. A million interests I want to do equally. Right. And so when that happens, we have these millions of interests that we want to do equally, our brains get overwhelmed. You can't even see the forest. You're like, you're in it and there's trees everywhere and you don't know how to get out and you just want to probably sit down and cry. That's what I would do. Like, I'm lost. I don't know where I am. So what we want to think about is how can we get out of the forest and get a bigger picture. So the thing is, what we want to be able to do is to look at the forest and say, okay, what things have time deadlines? What are those time deadlines? And then starting from what's nearest due to what's further out, you create your priority list. Eileen says, I try to get organized with a list, then mark everything as an A. I finally pick up, thank you, Facebook for getting rid of that. I finally pick up the A's and I don't know what. Can you please repost? We have to remember that it's not about keeping up with neuronormative, but accept our own. Exactly. You're not trying to compare yourself with neuronormative people. You're trying to just do what works for your brain and be part of a community of people like this who similarly struggle. I just want to say that Facebook is deleting people, so I can't respond. I'm sorry. Please repost. I struggle with having the mental capacity to even use these tools. Right. So one of the things that happens is that you're so overwhelmed that even using something that I'm suggesting, like what is one challenge for your focus, feels like too much. So I think that what's important is to break things down into smaller pieces. So, if you have trouble focusing and you notice there's something that distracts you, right, put that on your phone into a voice memo right away. I notice what's distracting me is this, or I notice what's distracting me is that, so that you can start to have a record of what it is without trying to hold it in your brain, which taxes your working memory, and then you feel bad about yourself too. One of the things, Amy, you said you struggle with is staying on one task with being distracted by another. Denise, many competing priorities. Yes. Getting your son to college, self-care. Main challenge is definitely the motivation to actually focus. I just have none lately. So if you're lacking motivation to focus on anything, what's getting in the way of that motivation? Tell me. I'd like to know. Because when we're not able to motivate, it's usually because there's a part of ourselves that is, holding us down, that is telling us something negative, that is trying to protect us from something that it's worried about or it's afraid of. Or so what's going on, do you think, that is holding you back from motivation? Sorry, overwhelmed now. Getting done what I'm supposed to. I have a very hard time, very consuming day job and business. I run on the side, so focusing both has been a challenge. Yeah, so this would be hard for anybody, Tanya. So, again, in situations like this, you really have to like block your time and stick with your time blocks, and that can be challenging. Virginia, having never received any professional development or mentoring when it comes to project management, I'm realizing that my time blindness is huge. I think that Attitude has a lot of interesting stuff on time blindness. That's also something that we can put down as a good topic for a webinar in the future. Um, Nadine, my one main challenge of focus is relationships and how not to get emotionally attached to everything a person says or does. If something goes wrong, I want to be able to focus on work or school without stopping. Right. So that has to do with, some, rejection sensitivity and actually being able to set boundaries for yourself around being and saying something to yourself like, I do not need to take this personally. This is not about me. Any interaction with someone is 50% them and 50% me. Diane says, I'm feeling like I'm failing at everything, even when I'm doing good. That sounds really hard, Diane, and I'm sorry to hear that because the fact is, if you are doing well, there's a voice in your head that is not letting you notice what's going well. And to counteract that voice, what I really suggest is at the end of each day, before you go to sleep, in a journal, write down 3 things that went well that day. And they can be small. Like they could be, I made a good cup of coffee. They could be huge. My boss loved my work today and gave me a positive review. They could be medium. I cooked a good dinner. So whatever it is, maybe some days there's 5, maybe some days there's just 3, but really to come up with 3 because we want to nurture that positive outlook instead of seeing what's always wrong. Cassandra, Cassandra went away. A lack of clarity, depression. Okay, so what's getting in the way of motivation? I'm not sure. I'm treating anxiety, but I think I have unchecked depression. So just so you know, untreated anxiety or severe anxiety can lead to depression. That's what the research shows. The main challenge is that I resist discipline. I can't stand regulating myself for a long time, extremely stressful. So Yasser, I think if you resist discipline or you can't stand regulating yourself for a long time, do it for shorter amounts of time. How long can you stand it? If you can, work in a 15-minute block, use the Pomodoro method, the tomato timer, and just set yourself up for 15-minute blocks with a short break and another 15. Work with what makes sense to you, where you succeed, rather than paying attention to what you don't do. I hope the video is not glitching. Lila, I'm always overthinking what a specific person in my life is going to do or worrying if some argument's going to happen, but it doesn't happen. I overthink and it's affecting my sleep. I have insomnia and I go to sleep every night at 3 a.m. That sounds really stressful. And here's the thing. You can't control what other people do or say. All you can manage is your response to it. And so if you're worrying about what other people are doing, that is toxic worry. It's not productive because you cannot do anything about it. What would be productive is to say, oh, okay, I'm worried that I won't know what the right thing to say is when people do that. I need some pocket phrases. Such as, I need some time to think about that. Let me get back to you. Or, I didn't like the way you said that. Could you repeat it, please? Lack of motivation and executive functioning. Listening and reading are big challenges. Thank you for posting that, Melanie. Being addicted to high dopamine activities like watching and rewatching TV shows, games on my phone. Right, so that's definitely going to get in the way of motivation. That when you're feeling kind of like you need a retreat or you're tired or you just need your brain off, that's fine, but you have to put some boundaries around that. Otherwise, that's your whole day, and then you're going to feel bad about yourself. So I think setting alarms, having a buddy call you, if you have a partner, asking them for assistance. I have a problem with time blindness and object permanence. Wow, this really struggled with what I think about. Thank you. I worry that I'll never get better and ever reach my long-term goals. Okay, Lorenzo, I hear that. I have bursts of ambition, but mostly distracted and dispersed. I get depressed because I often feel out of control meeting my goals. So when I read this, Lorenzo, what I want to say to you is, are your goals too big? You know, I know that I have very high expectations for myself, and those high expectations are part of the problem because nobody could meet those. Okay. So when we have goals that we're not meeting, we might need to size down the goal for a while so that we can meet it. Put it in our book or our journal at night. Hey, I did this thing that I said I was going to do, so that you can start to feel a sense of progress rather than a sense of, oh, I never get anything done. I am, you know, whatever you tell yourself, I'm a loser, or you know, I'm not smart, or I'm not worth anything. Mm. Thank you, Lila, for saying that. Diane says I rewatch TV shows all the time. I have to say that sometimes I will rewatch an episode or two, particularly if I'm feeling like stressed out. Um, I make a list and it feels good to get something completed on the list. Absolutely, Mickey. Denise, I have ADD and my son, who's entering his freshman year in college. I make lists and that helps me manage my load, but my son does not. He seemed to have found a tool that works for him. He does not want to take meds, would love a webinar on helping a college kid with raging ADD succeed. Well, I did 2 webinars on this actually, and you can find them on my website. You can also find things on Attitude, but there's definitely a webinar that you can purchase on my website exactly on this topic. Reading uninteresting text during my studies is hell. I drift off. Texts that interest me, I can spend hours without losing focus. So generally, I think it's important when you're studying not to look at your phone, not to read your texts, but to have a break time. You know, again, you're going to work for a period of time for as long as you can concentrate. Take a small break, work for a second period of time, and then take a larger break where you look at your texts. Unless you are, you know, the President of the United States who is managing multiple issues, or the, you know, some government official who needs to read their texts every hour, probably you can take you know, work for 50, 60 minutes and then come back. Johnny, I work in a role that takes me inside and outside constantly. It's extremely hard for me to change tasks, which is required of me. One might be digital, but then I might be needed somewhere else. There are tasks like emails I need to respond to or send. And I purchased a Surface Go 3 tablet to do stuff on the go. And it was great initially, but I find that being in my bag makes it hard to have that spark. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can be distracted by having that thing. So it can be helpful to have it, but then you can sort of find that you're drifting off to it. It's you know, when you have a job where you change environments, where you change tasks, you know, that's hard for a lot of people, particularly those who are neurodiverse, because there's that shift. And that flexibility. And it takes some people longer to have a warm up. In fact, one thing I was going to share today was about multitasking, because multitasking actually interferes with focus quite a bit. Multitasking doesn't really exist in the brain. It slows productivity, it changes how we learn and think, and it can increase superficiality in social relationships. Really, what multitasking is doing is splitting our attention. Every time we switch from one thing to another, we're changing our attention, so we're not concentrating on either task. And then you need a mental warm-up to resume the suspended task, so efficiency goes down. So if you have work where you are changing and shifting from thing to thing, then you need to give yourself a little time to make those transitions so your brain can catch up. Otherwise, that creates that sense of overwhelm. Okay, more from the comments. There are so many comments. Exhaustion from parenting and high conflict custody. I'm trying to maintain routine and boundaries. When he's gone, I struggle. Yes, one of the things that's really hard in divorced families is when the two parents don't get along and you can't have similar routines in the houses. Not that they have to be the same, but that there are routines and they are similar. It's important if you can, if you are in a divorce situation, if you can get someone to help you mediate some sort of routine or parenting support, that can be really useful. Carolyn, I block time, but others schedule meetings anyway. They get more and more behind, which causes stress and it goes in a circle. So here's the thing I want to say, and this is really hard to do, is sometimes saying no to something enables you to concentrate and develop the thing that you're already working on. So if you can't go to a meeting, like you can't have somebody scheduling meetings for you back to back, if you need time to transition and warm up and think about what you're doing. And so that's a reasonable thing to say. Is like, I can only attend 2 meetings a day or 3 meetings a day because I actually have work to do and these meetings are getting in the way of me doing my work. We have a problem. How are we going to solve that? I've seen a social media set of posts where someone asks a colleague to translate what she really wants to say to a business speak. I have no idea what that means. Lorenzo, I just feel emotionally overwhelmed and need a hug like 90% of the day. I'm sorry to hear this, Lorenzo. I don't know if you're getting therapeutic support or medication or something. If you're exercising regularly, any of those things might help with your emotional overwhelm. Kristen, what can we do to make sure we follow our timers or not forget them if we're doing something and can't break away? That's a fantastic question, Kristen, because it's so easy to set the timer and ignore it. I have a timer that goes off at 9:45 every evening that tells me I need to go upstairs at 10. And then I have another timer that tells me to go upstairs at 10. And I ignore those, I would say, 85% of the time. And then I go upstairs too late. And so one of the things that I think we want to do is to make our timer annoying and to have a conversation with ourselves and say, you know what, you keep ignoring the timer and then you go to bed too late and then you feel bad and blah, blah, blah. So what's going to help you? So in this case, I asked my husband, when it's 10 o'clock, please encourage me to go upstairs. And even if I'm a jerk, ignore that because it's not about you. Just encourage me by saying, it's 10 o'clock. This is when you wanted me to tell you to go upstairs. And then you're done. Your birthday. So here you go. Failure is all about your state of mind. We are supposed to stumble as human beings. That's our path. That's how we learn. That's what fosters a growth mindset. You stumble, you pick yourself up, you reorient, you try again, or maybe you try something different. One of the things that I hear you saying is that you are expecting failure no matter what you do. And that's something that's worth talking about with somebody, like a coach or a counselor or a therapist, because that expectation of failure is getting in your way of actually sharing your gifts with the world. We all have moments of success and moments of less success. We all think times when things are going swimmingly and times when you're like, I'm just going to sit at the beach because this day is kind of been really stinky. Rather than condemn yourself for your failures, how can you look at your failures, quote unquote, as opportunities? In Chinese, it's the same character, crisis and opportunity. So I'd really like you to really think about when you're struggling, what is a learning that you could take from it rather than, berating yourself for how terrible you are that you've stumbled again. Yes, thank you, Susan, for sharing that. Ned just covered that as well on attitude. Amanda, I think it's important to remember that if your child has ADHD and they have other neuro differences, yep. Extremely low dopamine from draining, boring tasks makes it easier to be distracted. It's hard to pay attention even when I want to. So one of the things that we want to do with an ADHD brain is vary low dopamine tasks with high dopamine tasks. And you want to set up a work schedule where there's something that you love, something you don't like so much, something that you love, a break, etc., so that you feel like you're able to balance that. Hugs release so much stress I'm holding in my body. Yeah. Where can we watch the replay of this? Hi, Lori. It'll be right here. And there's also one on my Facebook page, too. It has helped me forget the idea of perfect routines, consistency. I start habits all the time. I start habits over all the time. That's right. So you're going to start, you're going to, quote, fall off the wagon, but you don't have to shame yourself. You don't have to should yourself. You don't have to blame yourself. You can just be like, okay, I'm going to start again. Oh boy, if you and I could put our heads together, we'd be the ultimate productivity machine. Sounds good, Renelle. Or maybe you're not talking to me, you're talking to someone else. Say, my house is a nightmare and I need to work on budgeting, but I have a mentally taxing job and no spoons left to give to home personal tasks. So I think in this kind of situation, Dana, or for other people who have mentally taxing jobs and that kind of burns their brain out, I think it's worth maybe, really talking to a friend or colleague or somebody in human resources about how to make your work life more manageable. You can't give everything at work and have nothing left for yourself, because day after day, then you're on a starvation diet, and then you're not going to be able to continue to succeed at work. So we've got to come up with different ways of managing. I like to use multitasking to keep my brain from wandering when doing mundane tasks. I like to listen to a podcast. That's great when working on a routine. You're welcome, Yasser. Thank you for putting up the Eisenhower matrix. I appreciate that, Melanie. Do I rest after this? Yes, I do. I have a drink of water. I might try to talk to Melanie to sort of go over what's going on, except I don't have her phone number. And I take my dog for a walk. Often I need to be productive. I'm doing 2 to 3 things simultaneously. So when you're doing those 2 to 3 things simultaneously, you're not really doing any of them particularly well. And so I would really encourage you to be able to say to yourself, okay, I have these three things I need to do. I'm going to start with this one only, and I'm going to minimize those other things. I'm going to put them in their own tab or open up a new browser, and I'm going to minimize them so I'm only focused on the thing in front of me. Okay. Writing 3 completed tasks, working in 15-minute blocks, writing more urgent and important lists. So many things I know, but I forgot because I'm overwhelmed. Okay, I'm sorry that you're overwhelmed because I gave a lot of information today, but you're right. Writing 3 completed tasks that you feel good about, working in 15-minute blocks or 20-minute blocks, whatever makes sense to your brain, and using urgent and important lists based on the Eisenhower matrix that Melanie posted above. The second one I posted didn't work either. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on with my downloadables, why they're not working. This is very frustrating to me. I will copy this and put it in one more time. Here we go. This is about motivation. This should work. I'm not sure why it's not working, but I will certainly talk to my people to make sure. Thank you very, very much, everybody. We went over a little bit. I'm going to spend 2 more minutes answering questions. Sadly, I can't trick myself like that because I always mentally know I have wiggle room, and so I let myself procrastinate. It's similar, but helps me to set multiple alarms before travel time to trigger me, right? So one of the things that helps me with the alarm is knowing is remembering the outcome when I don't do that, or when I don't set the alarms to leave for the airport in enough time. I know I'm going to be in a panic, and that panic is not worth it to me anymore. Dylan, I binge to try and get my dopamine fix. It's a vicious cycle. Right. So what you want to do, Dylan, is actually alternate high and low dopamine activities, because the binging isn't going to help you feel better. Well, Trish, I'm glad you made it, and there's a recording, so you don't have to worry about it. You're welcome, Bob. Thank you, Danielle. We are not the sum of our failures. We are the sum of all parts, good, bad, past success, future promise. That's beautiful. Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate your saying that. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Awesome. Kevin, my life too. When my daughter leaves after being here for an extended period of time, I struggle greatly. Yes, it's hard when you have contact with a child or a family member and then they're gone, or students or whatever, and then you have this open expanse of time, and it can feel overwhelming. So I encourage you to think about, what do I want to do on Saturday, or what do I want to do tomorrow now that my daughter's not here or my child's left for college? What's one or two activities, something that might be a have to and something that would bring me joy. And listening or watching something, I knit. I think that's different than actually, basically watching something, having, go shopping on Amazon and doing my emails like that. That's a bit much. So, okay. Let's see. Thank you for posting the downloadable. I hope it works. I see. Okay. The downloadable worked. Thank you. Oh my God. All right. I'm going to look into this, Danielle. I'm really sorry. If you're interested in the downloadable about how to harness grit or motivation, send me an email, info@drsharonsaline.com, and I'll send you the downloadable. I'm not sure why that happened. So we went a little bit over. Thank you so much for joining me, and for everybody for sharing today. I really appreciate it. And we will see you again in a month. Maybe it's 3 weeks. We'll do one in August for sure, and then we'll come back to our every other week in September. So thank you for joining in all over the world. I appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability, and how you are supporting each other. Again, thank you for the feedback about my downloadables. I don't know what's wrong, but I will fix that. And you can get the replay here on Attitude or on my website, www.drsharonsaline.com. So yeah, you can check out hello at Dr. Sharon Saline or info at Dr. Sharon Saline. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and be kind to yourself. Bye.